For more than 15 years, Sister Wives gave viewers a front row seat to one of reality television's most unusual families. 4 wives, 1 husband, 18 children, one enormous family trying to make plural marriage work while cameras followed nearly every major twist in their lives. But now everything has changed. And that is exactly why fans are asking a question that could become the biggest question surrounding season 21. What is actually left of Sister Wives? Because the family viewers met back in 2010 no longer exists in the same form. Christine is gone from the marriage. Janelle is gone. Meri is gone. And Kody Brown is now living in a completely different reality, one where Robyn is his only remaining wife. That transformation has been happening slowly, painfully, and publicly for years. But season 21 could be the moment when viewers finally have to confront the consequences of all those changes. And here is where things get interesting. Season 21 is reportedly happening. Michael T. Brown-Padron has said the show was renewed for another season, and she has indicated that viewers should expect it in fall 2026. Reports also say filming took place and production wrapped, yet TLC had remained relatively quiet about the season's official details, which has only made fans more curious. So this isn't really a story about whether season 21 exists. The bigger story is, can Sister Wives survive when the Sister Wives are no longer Sister Wives? Think about that for a moment. When the series began, the entire appeal was watching Kody navigate relationships with Meri, Janelle, Christine, and eventually Robyn. The women were connected through one complicated family structure. They shared holidays, they raised children together. They experienced jealousy, disagreements, celebrations, and heartbreak together. And whether viewers loved the family or criticized them, there was always one central question driving the show. Could plural marriage actually work? But that question has almost completely disappeared. Christine publicly ended her relationship with Kody in 2021. Janelle followed with her separation in 2022. Meri's relationship with Kody also came to an end. And today, Robyn is the only woman still married to him. Even TLC's current description of the series acknowledges the dramatic shift, describing the Browns as coming off 3 divorces and asking whether Kody and Robyn's monogamy will last or whether another wife could eventually enter the picture. And that last question may be one of the biggest clues about where TLC could take the story next. Because if the original premise has disappeared, something has to replace it. And fans aren't necessarily convinced that the replacement is enough. In online discussions about season 21, some viewers have openly questioned what the season will actually focus on. One recent Reddit discussion centered specifically on the concern that the new season could simply become everyday life, meals, conversations, and recycled family drama rather than the explosive storylines that originally made the series so addictive. Other fans have gone even further. They are asking whether the show should simply end. And that's where the title of this video starts making sense. Sister Wives Season 21 bombshell? Fans say it's finally over. But before we jump to the conclusion that the show is finished, there is something we need to understand. The Browns may have lost the original family structure, but they have not run out of drama. Not even close. Because now the story isn't necessarily about plural marriage anymore. It's about what happens after plural marriage. Meri has built a life away from Kody. Christine has remarried David Woolley. And Janelle has recently surprised viewers by publicly introducing a new boyfriend named Pete, a development that demonstrates just how dramatically her life has changed since leaving Kody. Meanwhile, Kody and Robyn remain at the center of the family controversy, their marriage, their relationship with the children, their future, and the enormous question of whether Kody actually wants the plural family he once fought so hard to maintain. That could give season 21 an entirely different identity. Instead of watching one man manage 4 marriages, viewers could be watching 4 women finally build lives without him. And perhaps that's the real twist. Maybe Sister Wives isn't ending because the story is over. Maybe the story is simply changing. But there is one problem. Will viewers still care enough to watch? That is the question TLC now has to answer. Because season 21 isn't walking into the same television landscape that existed when the Brown family was living together, traveling together, and trying to convince viewers that their unusual marriage could work. The audience has watched the family fracture in real time. They watched the wives leave. They watched relationships between Kody and some of his children deteriorate. They watched apologies, confrontations, separations, and emotional reunions. And after all of that, there is a possibility that some viewers simply feel like they've seen enough. Yet others are waiting for one final chapter. And that final chapter could be far more emotional than anyone expects. Because if season 21 really is the beginning of the end, TLC has one enormous opportunity. Give viewers a reason to stay until the very last episode. And that brings us to the biggest mystery of all. If this really is the final era of Sister Wives, whose story will season 21 actually belong to? Kody and Robyn, Meri, Christine and David, Janelle and Pete, or the children who spent years growing up inside the Brown family experiment? Because depending on that answer, season 21 could either feel like the final chapter or the beginning of an entirely new Sister Wives. Maybe the biggest problem facing Sister Wives isn't that the Brown family has run out of drama. Maybe the real problem is that the family has become almost unrecognizable from the family viewers originally fell in love with or loved to argue about, and that distinction matters. Because Sister Wives was never just about Kody Brown, it was about the complicated relationship between Kody, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn. It was about watching 4 women attempt to share one husband while raising children under one enormous family umbrella. But now, that umbrella has been ripped apart. TLC's own current description acknowledges that the Browns have left polygamy behind and asks where everyone goes from here. And that one sentence may explain exactly why season 21 feels so different. The show isn't really documenting a plural family anymore. It's documenting the aftermath of one. And for some fans, that is exactly where the excitement disappears. In recent discussions surrounding season 21, viewers have questioned whether there will be enough meaningful material to justify another season. One fan openly worried that the season could become a series of ordinary conversations between Kody and Robyn, Christine and David, rather than the major family conflicts viewers once expected. That criticism may sound harsh, but when you look at where everyone is today, it's easy to understand why people are asking. Christine has moved on. She isn't waiting around for Kody to change. She isn't trying to repair their marriage. She married David Woolley in 2023, and her life has increasingly become about her new marriage and the future she is building outside Kody's household. Meri has moved on too. Her long, complicated relationship with Kody has finally become part of her past. And then there is Janelle. For years, Janelle was arguably the wife who seemed the least interested in completely walking away. She had spent decades with Kody. She had built a family with him. She had repeatedly described the connection between them as something meaningful, even when the romantic side of their relationship became complicated. But eventually, Janelle left. And now she's doing something many fans never expected to see. She's dating again. In August 2026, Janelle publicly introduced a man named Pete, writing that she hadn't been looking for love and hadn't expected him, but that the relationship had become pretty wonderful. And suddenly, Janelle's storyline isn't, will she stay with Kody? It's, well, what does Janelle's life look like now that she doesn't need Kody at all? That's a completely different show. And perhaps that is why season 21 could become either a disaster or the most interesting reinvention Sister Wives has ever attempted. Because there is still one enormous source of drama, Kody. Kody is now in a position he spent years trying to avoid. He has one wife. Robyn, that's it. The man who once talked about the benefits of a large plural family is now living in a completely different reality, and that creates a strange paradox. The collapse of the family could actually become Kody's biggest storyline. What does he do now? Does he genuinely embrace monogamy? Does he still secretly want the plural family structure? Does Robyn want another wife? And if another woman ever entered their lives, would that actually rebuild the family or create an entirely new explosion? Those questions aren't imaginary. TLC itself has previously teased the possibility of another woman entering Kody and Robyn's world, while also highlighting the question of whether their monogamous marriage will last. But here's the problem. Fans have heard versions of this story before. They've heard about new beginnings. They've heard about reconciliation. They've heard about family healing. They've watched Kody apologize. They've watched tense meetings. They've watched the adults revisit old wounds. And season 20 itself ended with Kody's apology storyline taking center stage, including meetings with Janelle, Christine, and Meri. So some viewers are now asking, how many more times can the same wounds be reopened? That's the question TLC can't ignore, because reality television depends on change. A family doesn't necessarily need to be happy. It doesn't even need to be united, but something has to happen. There has to be a reason for viewers to return next week, And season 21 is facing a unique challenge. The biggest story already happened. The marriages ended, the family separated, the wives left, the children grew up, and Kody's original plural family effectively collapsed. So what comes next? That is where things get much more interesting. Because while some fans are predicting the end, others may be overlooking something. The Brown family may be fractured, but the relationships between these people are still complicated. Janelle and Christine remain close. Meri continues building her own life. Kody's relationships with some of his adult children remain a major source of tension. Robyn remains at the center of Kody's world, and now Janelle has introduced Pete to the public. Even Christine has reacted positively to Janelle's new relationship, reportedly calling Pete an awesome guy and noting his construction background is similar to David's. So perhaps the question isn't whether there is nothing left. Maybe the question is whether TLC knows how to tell this new story, because the old Sister Wives was about one family trying to stay together. The new Sister Wives could be about what happens when everyone finally learns how to live apart, and that could be far more emotional than anyone expected. But there is one person who could determine whether season 21 succeeds or fails: Janelle Brown. Because if Janelle truly decides that she no longer wants her life tied to the show, TLC could lose one of the most important remaining connections to the original family. And there are already signs that her future with the series may not be guaranteed. So the question becomes even bigger. Is season 21 actually the beginning of the end for Janelle on Sister Wives? And if she walks away, what happens to the show next? There is something strange happening around Sister Wives season 21. And ironically, it isn't what TLC has announced, it's what TLC hasn't announced. For a show that has spent more than a decade generating headlines, trailers, arguments, and endless speculation, the silence surrounding season 21 has become impossible for fans to ignore. As of late August 2026, there was still no official season 21 premiere date publicly listed by TLC, even though reports had previously indicated that cameras rolled and production wrapped. And that silence has created a strange situation. Fans know there is supposedly another season. They know filming happened. They know the Brown family still has plenty of unfinished business, but they don't know when they're going to see it. And when reality TV fans don't get answers, they start making their own theories. Some viewers are wondering whether TLC is simply waiting for the right moment. Others are asking whether the network is struggling to find a compelling way to package the new season. And some have gone much further. They are asking whether Sister Wives has finally reached the point where the network itself doesn't know what comes next. Recent coverage has highlighted exactly that concern, with fans questioning why season 21 remained so quiet and whether the series had naturally reached its endpoint. But here's the part that makes this even more interesting. The Brown family actually has more changes happening now than it did when the show first began. The problem is that those changes don't necessarily fit the original formula. Look at Janelle. Only a few years ago, viewers were watching her struggle with the question of whether she could continue her spiritual marriage to Kody. Now, she's publicly dating someone new. Janelle introduced Pete in August 2026 after keeping the relationship relatively private. She described the relationship as unexpected and deeply meaningful, while Christine publicly supported the new couple. That is a major life development. But it isn't a Sister Wives storyline in the traditional sense. It is a Janelle Brown storyline, and that difference may define the future of the show, because the women no longer need Kody to generate drama. They have their own lives. Christine has David. Janelle now has Pete. Meri has continued exploring life and relationships after leaving Kody. And Kody? He has Robyn. The entire structure has flipped. The wives who once revolved around one husband are now building independent lives. And the husband who once had multiple wives now has only one. That is an extraordinary reality TV transformation, but it creates a branding problem. The title is still Sister Wives. The family structure that inspired that title is essentially gone. And fans are noticing. One recent fan discussion about season 21 captured the concern perfectly. Viewers are wondering whether the season will actually deliver meaningful developments or whether it could turn into ordinary conversations about everyday life. That's a brutal criticism for a reality show, because nobody wants to watch a season where the biggest question is, what did everyone have for dinner this week? Fans want stakes. They want consequences. They want revelations. They want emotional confrontations. They want something that changes the way they understand the family. And after 20 seasons, the bar is extremely high. The audience has already watched marriages collapse. They've watched family members move across states. They've watched children grow into adults. They've watched Kody's relationships with some of his children become deeply strained. They've watched Meri, Janelle, and Christine separate from him. They've watched the family property storyline unfold. And they have watched the women slowly create lives independent of Kody. So season 21 cannot simply repeat the same argument. Something has to evolve. And perhaps that's why Janelle's new relationship could be much more important than it initially appears. Because imagine the contrast. On one side, you have Kody and Robyn trying to figure out what their future looks like as a monogamous couple. On the other side, you have Janelle experiencing a completely different kind of freedom. Christine has already shown what rebuilding a life can look like. Meri has been doing the same. And now Janelle is stepping into another chapter. That gives TLC a new narrative. The women are moving forward while Kody is left behind. But even that storyline comes with a dangerous question. How long can viewers watch people talk about their past before they want to see something genuinely new? That's where season 21 becomes a gamble. If TLC focuses too heavily on Kody's old relationships, viewers could complain that the show is repeating itself. If TLC focuses almost entirely on the ex-wives' new lives, viewers could ask why the series is still called Sister Wives. And if TLC tries to bring everyone together for another round of family discussions, fans may say they've already seen that story. So what is the solution? Perhaps the answer is not to recreate the old family. Perhaps the answer is to stop pretending the old family can be recreated. Maybe season 21 needs to acknowledge that the Brown family has permanently changed. Maybe the show needs to become something closer to a documentary about the aftermath of plural marriage. And if TLC takes that approach, there is actually a lot of material. Because the Brown family isn't just dealing with divorce. They're dealing with the emotional consequences of decades spent living inside an unusual family structure. They're dealing with adult children choosing how much contact they want with their parents. They're dealing with former sister wives who remain friends despite no longer sharing a husband. They're dealing with new marriages and new relationships. And they're dealing with Kody and Robyn trying to define what their future looks like now that the other marriages are gone. That's not nothing. That's a completely different kind of story, but there is still one problem. Will the audience accept it? Because some fans have already started saying they want the show to end. A recent August 2026 report described a portion of the audience as believing the series had reached a natural conclusion, specifically because the Brown family dynamics have become so fractured. And that should concern TLC, not because every viewer wants the show canceled, but because the question itself is becoming part of the conversation. When fans stop asking, what happens next? And start asking, why is this still happening? A reality show has a serious problem. Yet there is still one final possibility. What if season 21 is not the end? What if all this silence is simply the calm before TLC reveals a completely different version of Sister Wives? Because if the network has one thing left that could instantly change the conversation, it may involve Kody and Robyn. And the possibility that Kody's final marriage may not stay exactly as it is now. Because after everything this family has been through, there is still one question nobody can completely ignore. Could another woman really enter Kody and Robyn's world and completely change the show one more time? Final part. Is Sister Wives really over? And now we come to the question that has been hanging over Sister Wives season 21 from the very beginning. Is this actually the end? After everything the Brown family has experienced, it would be easy to look at the current situation and say the answer is yes. Meri is living her own life. Christine has built a new marriage with David. Janelle has entered another unexpected chapter with Pete. Kody is no longer living the plural marriage lifestyle viewers watched for years, and Robyn is now his only remaining wife. The original family structure is gone. There is no denying that. But saying the original Sister Wives is over is very different from saying the television show is over, and that distinction could be the biggest twist of all. Because perhaps Sister Wives doesn't need to be about plural marriage anymore. Perhaps it has become a story about what happens after plural marriage. For years, viewers watched these people try to make an unconventional family work. Now they're watching what happens when that family doesn't work. And that aftermath has created stories that nobody could have predicted when the series began. Christine didn't simply leave Kody. She found another partner and created a new marriage. Meri didn't simply walk away. She had to redefine who she was after spending decades connected to Kody. Janelle didn't simply separate. She eventually found herself in an entirely unexpected new relationship, with Pete becoming part of a chapter she apparently never planned for. Janelle recently described their relationship as something she hadn't been searching for, but that became pretty wonderful. That is not the story TLC originally sold viewers, but it is still a story, and perhaps it's a better one. Because the most interesting part of this family's journey may no longer be watching people fight to stay together. It may be watching them discover who they are after they finally leave. And that is where season 21 has an opportunity. Instead of pretending that the old family can be rebuilt, the show could embrace reality. The family changed, the marriages changed, the children grew up, the wives moved forward, and Kody's life changed along with them. The question is whether TLC is willing to let the show evolve with them, because fans have made their frustration clear. Some viewers believe the series has already reached its natural ending. Others are still interested in the Brown family's lives, but want something genuinely new instead of another season built around the same arguments and old wounds. Recent fan discussions reflect both sides of that debate, and honestly, both sides have a point. If season 21 simply replays old conflicts, viewers may become exhausted. But if season 21 shows where everyone is actually going now, it could become something much more compelling. Imagine seeing Janelle completely embrace her new chapter. Imagine Christine and David continuing their married life. Imagine Meri proving that her life didn't end when her relationship with Kody did. And then contrast all of that with Kody and Robyn, because Kody may now have the most difficult question of all. What does his life look like when the family he spent decades building no longer exists in the same form? That's potentially fascinating. TLC has also continued to tease questions surrounding Kody and Robyn's future, including whether their monogamous relationship will remain that way or whether the possibility of another wife could ever return. But there is currently no confirmation that a new wife is actually joining the family, and that is important because rumors can create cliques. But reality is what keeps an audience. So if season 21 wants to succeed, it needs more than another shocking headline. It needs authenticity. It needs consequences. It needs new chapters. And most importantly, it needs a reason for viewers to care about these people beyond the marriages that made them famous. That may be the real challenge, because the audience has changed too. The people who watched season 1 are not necessarily watching for the same reason today. Back then, viewers were curious about plural marriage. Now, many are watching because they became emotionally invested in the individual people. They want to know whether Meri is happy. They want to know what Christine's marriage looks like. They want to know where Janelle's life is heading. They want to know what happens to the children. And yes, they still want to know what Kody and Robyn are doing. That's why I don't think the most accurate conclusion is Sister Wives is definitely over. Not yet. There is no confirmed cancellation announcement that proves that. The more interesting conclusion is the old Sister Wives is over. The family that entered our screens in 2010 is gone. The plural marriage that defined the series is gone. The original household dynamic is gone. And now TLC has to decide whether the next version of the show is worth watching. That is a much bigger story. Because if season 21 becomes a genuine transition into a new era, the series could surprise everyone. But if it continues circling the same conflicts without giving viewers anything new, then the fans predicting the end may eventually be proven right. And that brings us back to Janelle. Her relationship with Pete may seem like a personal development, but symbolically, it represents something much larger. For years, Janelle's identity was tied to being one of Kody Brown's wives. Now she's showing viewers another possibility. She can simply be Janelle, a woman starting another chapter, a woman finding happiness somewhere unexpected, a woman whose future doesn't depend on whether Kody wants her back. And perhaps that's exactly where this entire story was always heading. Not toward one enormous family staying together forever, but toward several individuals finally becoming comfortable with their own lives. So is season 21 in trouble? Maybe. Is Sister Wives officially canceled? No confirmed announcement says that. Are fans questioning whether the show still has enough material? Absolutely. And could season 21 become the season that determines whether this franchise still has a future? That's the real question. Because after 20 seasons of marriages, breakups, moves, arguments, reunions, and heartbreak, the Brown family has reached a crossroads. The past is finished. The future is uncertain. And for the first time, Sister Wives has to prove that its story can continue even after the sister wives themselves have gone their separate ways. Maybe that is the ending. Or maybe it's the beginning of something completely different. And if TLC gets that next chapter right, season 21 may not be the end of Sister Wives. It could be the moment the show finally becomes something nobody expected. So now I want to know what you think. Do you believe Sister Wives still has enough story left for another season? Or should TLC finally let the Brown family close this chapter? Comment below, end it or keep it going. And if you're following the Brown family's next chapter, make sure you stay tuned because the biggest question may no longer be what happens to Kody. It may be what happens to everyone after Kody. And that story is just beginning.